Now to another story, and the Prime Minister has had a personal boost in the latest Newspoll survey in the Australian newspaper. The Newspoll chief, Martin O'Shannessy, is with us from our Sydney CBD studio. Martin, thanks for your time. It seems the Prime Minister being on the international stage has provided a boost for her, at least in terms of her personal standing.
Yes, no harm for her at all there. A fall in those dissatisfied with her performance, quite significant 5 points. A rise in those satisfied with her performance puts her now on par with the opposition leader, Tony Abbott, in terms of her net satisfaction. Now, it's negative 21 for both of them. They're still both quite unpopular, but it's also come through a fall in his rating as who would make the better Prime Minister, leaves her in front on that number for the first time in 6 months. So it's not negative for Julia Gillard, but while it's good news for her, that really hasn't come through in the polling for the Labor Party.
Yes, so Labor's still languishing at 30% primary. How significant is that actually, that drop from 32 to 30, the 2% drop since the last survey?
That's inside the area of statistical variability, but let's just take that number as it is. That puts Labor back where it was 6 weeks ago, a month or two ago, after a period of two polls where they appeared to be improving and building back towards some sort of competitive position. Right now we have the Coalition on 48%. That's a 4-point rise in their primary vote, which suggests that if there were an election, the result would be 57 to 43, a very comfortable win for the Coalition. And that's a reversal of trend for Labor over the last 6 weeks.
What about the fact that both leaders are so unpopular? They're now officially as unpopular as one another with that exact rating in terms of their approval and disapproval. What's the trend like on that front? Is it a bit all over the shop, or has there been a consistent trend one way or the other here?
Now, there has been a bit of variation for both. It took a while for Tony Abbott to come close. Previously, on a lot of measures, Julia Gillard was better. Tony Abbott has remained quite unpopular as an individual, in spite of what I think is some pretty good repair work he's done on the Coalition vote. But as we say, as you point out, both leaders have remained unpopular throughout their term. For Julia Gillard, it was a short end to the honeymoon and a move into negative territory, which a Prime Minister can expect. And it's possible for a Prime Minister to govern well and be unpopular and, therefore to win. And we've seen Keating and Howard in the past do that quite effectively. The problem for her, of course, is that unpopularity is also backed up with a very low primary vote. 30% is 8 points below, or more than 8 points below, the position that the Labor Party was at the last election, which of course means that, even if they were to get those 8 points back, they still wouldn't have a clear majority. They need 42% as a primary vote to actually govern in their own right. They're a long way off that, and this latest news poll is, I guess, bad news in terms of, for them, in terms of that fight back.
Martin, just finally, is there any school of thought that suggests that the leadership rating then is a lead indicator for the party rating, or is it the flip side? Is it normally the primary vote that is the lead indicator for the leadership approval rating?
Well, it's interesting. We see them moving in opposite directions at the moment, and that's a little unusual. Normally the case is that we will see them moving together, perhaps one driven by the other, perhaps both in lockstep or autocorrelative, if we statisticians have our word. But what we've seen, of course, is a situation where the high profile, the public appearances, there wasn't a dry eye in the place when Julia Gillard gave her address in Darwin, including my place. But on the other hand, we've had the carbon tax, we've got the mining tax, we've got gay marriage, we've got uranium to India. All of those things will actually be hurting Labor somewhere in their base at some point, or at some level. So I think we've got a very good explanation of why those two numbers are moving separately. Generally they move together, but on this occasion, pretty good reasons for them going in opposite directions.
Martin O'Shannessy from Newspoll, as always. Thanks for that, Martin.
Always a pleasure.